As part of their 2021 virtual winter programming, the Ohio State University Extension Beef Team was privileged to host University of Kentucky livestock marketing specialist Kenny Burdine via Zoom on January 26th. During his presentation, after reviewing the impacts of COVID-19 on the 2020 beef cattle market and laying the foundation for what may be on the horizon, Burdine offered his insight into what we might expect the markets to look like as we progress through 2021. Excerpted here in about 9 minutes from that presentation are Dr. Burdine's projections for what he expects from the beef cattle markets throughout the coming year.
When I think about this decrease in production, I think we're likely to see a decrease in the calf crop and then at least flat production on the beef side. And I think about probably more robust and a pretty significant increase in exports. I'm a lot more optimistic about 2021 than I certainly was 2019 and even 2020, knowing what we do now. It's very easy to say. But I look for these calf prices to increase probably about 20 cents from now to spring. So I'm saying a 550-pound steer calf will probably move somewhere in the 160s on a state average basis in Kentucky. I think we'll see groups in the 170s. I think you could see really good groups of 5-weight steers probably in the low 180s by, say, April or so. There's always something psychological about $2 calves, and I can't tell you how many times folks have asked me about, when are we going to see $2 calves again? And the truth is, I think we'll see some $2 calves in the spring of 2021, but I think they're going to be probably calves that weigh close to 400 pounds. We'll just make a really quick point about that. Don't get totally wrapped up chasing prices. For example, I would not be at all surprised if we had some light fours, some calves kind of in that 4 to 425 range that do sell for near $2 a pound come spring. We think about these stock operators placing some of these calves on grass. I think we'll see that. If I've got a group of 525-pound calves that sell for $2 a pound, they sell for $850 a head. Okay. If instead I have a 550-pound steer, weighs 125 pounds more, he sells for $1.75, 25 cents back of that 425 calf. He sells for $963 a head. So again, there's something about $2 calves, I get it, but I always want to know right after that, okay, what did they weigh? And the number we multiply times price is weight. And oftentimes that's the most important number that we've got to think about as cow-calf operators. That's the one that's in our control. I do think we'll see a stronger fall calf market too than we saw in 2020. If I had to give you a guess, I think we'll see those 5-weight steers in the upper 140s, groups in the 150s. This one's a little bit harder to predict because I don't know what those feed prices are going to do. Feed prices have very little impact on our calf market in the spring. They have much more impact in the fall of the year. So I'm making this forecast assuming that feed prices stay relatively high during 2021. If we have a big corn crop in 2021 and if feed prices are cheaper, come fall of the year, then I think we could actually see, another nickel or so on these calves pretty easily. So I'm basically going to call these calves about a dime higher per pound. So think $50 a head roughly on a 5-weight steer than we saw in 2020. So a better calf market, not a great calf market, but a better calf market. If you move heavier feeders, my best guess would be that those 850-pound steers are somewhere kind of in the mid 130s by spring and probably the low 140s by fall is kind of where I would put them. Share a few thoughts now on some different sectors, and then I'll move into some management considerations. I think on the cow-calf side that 2021 should be the 2020 we expected. Calf crop is smaller. Export market to me looks very encouraging. Domestic market should be improving throughout 2021. So I look for a pretty decent or much improved 2021. I think fall calvers, selling calves this spring will be pretty happy. I think it's been 5 or 6 years since we have seen the kind of calf prices that we're going to see in spring of 2021. I sure hope I'm right about that. I do think unless there's a major change in feed price, meaning a very large corn crop, a very good yielding corn crop, I think we'll see a pretty significant drop between spring calf price and fall calf price. I'm thinking it'll be about 20 cents a pound difference in what a 5-weight steer sells for in April versus what that same steer sells for in November of 2021. Even with a better market, though, we are going to see limited returns to land and capital. That's just a fact. These cow-calf operators are going to cover their cash costs. They're going to cover feed costs. They're going to cover vet medicine. They're going to cover those kind of costs. They're going to see limited returns to land, labor, and capital, and that's pretty normal in the cow-calf sector. So yes, we will make money on paper, but we're not going to see a huge return to the time and the risk that we're taking. As I think about a summer stocker market, and I'm going to focus this on the cow-calf side as much as I can, I really do think this calf market will run this spring. If you're somebody who likes to keep your calves post-weaning in the spring, and I'm a proponent of that, by the way, just be aware that you're probably going to see some pretty valuable calves this spring, and we're going to be very vulnerable to market swings simply because we're going to have a little bit tighter corn supply, at least through the growing season of 2021. One thing I will say, though, is what really drives oftentimes those stocker margins is what calves are worth in the spring of the year. And high feed prices basically limit the ability of our feed-based operations to bid on calves in the spring. So stocker operators oftentimes can get calves bought cheaper because they're not competing as aggressively with some of those feed-based operations. So if feed prices stay high, that typically increases the return to a stocker type enterprise, which means if you've got calves you're going to wean this spring and you like to keep those post-weaning, probably a good year to think about doing it, simply because the cost what you can put on those calves via grass is going to be cheaper than what it's going to cost to do it via feed. So do keep that in the back of your mind. I don't know how common this is. I probably should have asked Garth or Stan, but I never know how many folks actually retain ownership on cattle through finishing Kentucky until something major happens like we saw in 2020, but then I start getting those calls. And, every time I got one of those calls this spring or summer, it was a tough conversation because every group of cattle that was on feed and came off feed sometime, between April and about June, about a 5-figure loss. So those are not pleasant conversations. So I'm not a huge fan of this, mostly because I just see more red ink than black ink. But, if you want to finish cattle, if you want to finish your cattle out west on a custom feed yard basis, what I typically tell folks is, got to know the quality of them, right? You don't want to learn the quality of your cattle via a kill sheet. That's oftentimes a very expensive lesson to learn. There's just always a lot of difference across cow herds. So know the cattle before you retain ownership on them. Consider shared ownership arrangements. I don't like 100% retain ownership. I like some sort of arrangement where both the feed yard and the cattle owner have skin in the game. So I would look at something like that. Don't ship cattle in the red. I mean, I see people all the time that'll tell me, yeah, I'm going to ship these cattle. The market doesn't look good right now, but if fed cattle prices increase by, 5 or 10 cents a pound, I'll make money on them. Okay, then sell the cattle and buy a live cattle futures contract. You don't need to ship the cattle out west if you're going to be speculating on the live cattle market. And frankly, if you're shipping cattle into the red, meaning if they're going to lose money when you ship them out there, you're basically just speculating that fed cattle market goes up. So I don't encourage that. If the goal is data, meaning if your goal with retained ownership is to learn about the quality of your cattle, and that's very admirable, by the way, I think you should think about doing that, price aggressively. Don't worry about riding the market swings. Just be aggressive on your pricing, limit your risk, and focus on the value of the data. Don't focus so much on the market. And then I'll leave you with this and shift to some more management stuff, but this is, I think, pretty much region-wide, but I've just been stunned at how much demand there has been for cattle being purchased off the farm for freezer beef. We do this on a small scale ourselves, so I've kind of got a foot in this world, if you will. We were already pretty low on processing capacity at the local level in Kentucky, and right now you probably can't even get a harvest date towards the end of 2021. You're probably looking 2022. So huge increase in demand for this, huge increase in consumer demand. The other thing to be aware of, I see a lot of these Craigslist ads and Facebook, posts and things. A lot of these finished cattle being sold as freezer beef are not finished cattle. They're just big feeder cattle. So it's a really strange market right now. So if this is a piece of your marketing plan, and I like it, by the way, you got to think really far ahead and do a good job planning and get those dates booked and work closely with consumers they've got people probably reaching out to them like they never have before.